Welcome. I'm Reverend Dr. Victor Furman, Vice Chair of A.R.E. of New York City, and it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Rom Weber. Dr. Rom is an international psychic medium based in the New York metropolitan area. Celebrating more than 25 years of work serving spirit, she's appeared on television and radio and has worked with clients from all over the world. She's trained in both American and British styles of mediumship. Dr. Rom's primary interests are in uniting loved ones in the here and hereafter, providing evidence for the continuity of spirit, and helping people develop their own spirituality and mediumistic potential. As a medium, her approach is warm, compassionate, and down to earth. Please join me in welcoming my dear friend, Dr. Rom Weber. Welcome, Dr. Rom.
Hi, Victor. How are you?
Wonderful. And it's so nice to see you and have you with us this evening to talk about all of the wonderful things that you do and the presentations that you're going to be putting on for A.R.E. of New York City. So let's talk about you and I and our original meeting years ago.
Oh,
We
yeah.
originally met at Bob Cecilio's Queens, New York Psychic Club. That was a long time ago and a lot of fun.
Yeah. Feels like a galaxy far, far away by this point.
Absolutely. It's got to be 25 or 30 years at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
believe so. I believe so.
Yeah.
And then after we met at Bob's, then we joined our dear friend Dom Villela's New York City Paranormal NYC Investigations.
Yes.
And we both contributed our gifts to that organization.
hmm
Tell me a little bit about that for you.
It was interesting because as somebody who was working as a medium, where the spirit world, the people in spirit came to me, I always found the idea of paranormal investigation a little hokey. It seemed like it was a little dramatized. It was a little bit working too hard, if you will. And at a certain point in my mediumship career, I said, maybe that's a little closed-minded. And that's when I decided that I would connect with everybody. And I think it really expanded the way I was able to perceive spirit in different situations. And I always loved that the first thing that we would come in and do is to use science and to try to rule things out first that weren't paranormal at all. And then if there was something left, we'd have a piece of it to go with. And that was really interesting. So I really liked how we did it step by step by step by step, and how the clients really had their fears addressed, were calmer, they understood what was going on. And sometimes we found a couple interesting things, the electricity and whatnot, that we were able to solve thanks to some of you folks being engineers and whatnot and having a background.
Absolutely. Dom and I both would do the electrical or any kind of checking for equipment that might be malfunctioning and causing them to perceive that there was something there. But our motto was, we don't hunt them, we help them. And that was really what it was about. If there was actually
Yeah.
a disembodied spirit there, we would do our best with their permission to help them move on.
Yeah. Sounds good.
And that was very rewarding when we did that.
hmm
So tell us about your early path and what you found when you were young.
Sure. Um, I had to reconceptualize this because I've always thought of myself as somebody who had a strong spiritual emergence in my mid 20s. And that was really the beginning of my mediumship. But if I really look critically at my past, I can recognize that I was a child that saw spirits, but I thought nothing different of it. It was just woven into the fabric of everyday life. So I wasn't thinking about mediumship then. I wasn't thinking about spirituality then, and so on. It was just there, right? When I was in high school, I started experimenting. I started doing the psychic experiments that teenagers often get curious about. And I found that I had a really strong gift with psychometry, which is the ability to hold an object and sense perhaps who the owner was, where it came from, things like that. Objects can carry vibration. And if you're sensitive, you can tap into that. That was the beginning. It was just some experimentation. And then after that, I started experimenting in college, I remember with Zener cards. And I tried other forms to kind of bring out whatever was underneath the surface. Uh, Astrology did not work for me. Really don't get it too well. Tarot cards also did not. So there were forms of divination that I just wasn't gelling with. And as I continued to experiment, I found the runes. And runes are the ancient Scandinavian alphabet on stones, often made out of terracotta or glass. And what I found was, because they were abstract, when I looked at them, my mind would be directed into my mind's eye, our imagination, where we image things. And that's when my clairvoyance really started to gel. So that was the beginning. And I really had never heard about mediums at this point. I just heard about people that were doing psychic readings or astrologers, numerologists, tarot readers, etc. And then let's see, to put this in context, this was kind of going on in the background, but I was also raised in a pretty conservative Jewish family. And we had this joke in my family that a child could be a doctor, they could be a lawyer, or they could be an Indian chief. And by the way, we're not Indian, so you've got two choices. And I went from kindergarten to PhD nonstop. I'm an awarded academic, I'm a Truman Scholar. And I went to a school to study human sexuality so that I could work as a clinical sexologist thereafter. And that's what I did. And about the time I was opening practice as a clinical sexologist in the same place at different times, I was beginning to see people who were my mediumship and psychic clients. But the way it really came together was in a spontaneous experience while I was doing a rune reading and I was trying a different method. And all of a sudden, I was able to perceive the grandmother of the person I was with. And I had no idea that I had mediumship capacities at all. It was out of the blue. And it was so beautiful. You could feel the vibration. It was midday, so it was very brightly lit. Everything seemed hypercharged, if you will. The love in the room was palpable. And it lasted for about 30 minutes. And then it dissipated. And during those 30 minutes, I could see, I could hear, I could feel. And the recipient, my sitter, as we now call them, was able to understand everything. And I took a breath afterwards. And I said, you know, if I could do this again, I'm absolutely in love with this work. And that's when I got started. So I said, well, I need to figure out how to work with people that aren't my family and my friends, because my family and friends could always say, well, you knew that about me already, right? So I put an ad in Craigslist. This was in San Francisco. And Craigslist at the time was what we would say now is more wholesome than it is today. It was a bulletin board for all intents and purposes. People would sell things or post events and whatnot. And I put up an ad and I said, if you are interested in having a mediumship reading, come and meet with me in this public cafe downtown. And if you're willing to provide constructive criticism, I'll read for you for free. And so for a while, I worked with complete strangers, back to back, over and over, over and over. And I started noticing patterns develop, patterns of names, sounds, syllables, symbols, and so on and so forth. And from that start, when I got to a certain level where I felt like I could deliver a reading accurately, most all the time, that's when I hung out the shingle, so to say. And that's when I started. So that's the background. That's how it all started. And then after that, it just grew. It grew organically. I found a mentor. I studied overseas. I started working with groups. I opened my mind up to the paranormal investigation of New York City group, radio, TV, conferences overseas. It just keeps growing. It's so creative. So that's the Cliff Notes version.
Tell us about your travels as an evidential medium.
One of the places I've been blessed to go is a place called the Arthur Findlay College, which is in Stansted, England. And I originally went as a student when I was seeking development, mediumship development classes and so forth. And I've been back there many times. And now, because I'm at the teacher level, it's quite a different experience. I'm going there to be in the presence of spirit. I'm going there to be around like-minded people. I'm going there to enjoy beginner's mind. I'm going there to enjoy experimental mediumship. But when I started there, I was learning a lot more, especially with platform mediumship, right? Because here's the thing, anybody can sense spirit. And the difference with the medium is then being able to communicate that effectively and clearly. So there are skills that one learns for that. To describe Arthur Findlay is really interesting. It is the residential facility or one of them, of the Spiritualist National Union, which is the organization of spiritualists in the UK. And it is a bona fide church there, as well as a residential facility. And let's just say it looks like a certain British mansion that got famous through certain popular movies with certain popular Harry Potter. I don't want to get into all that. There's issue there, but it is this beautiful, quiet retreat. There are, meadows around there and gardens, and there's horses, and you can be so quiet that you can just feel the presence of spirit so easily. And it's a great place for people to go. Anybody can go. You don't have to be associated with the church. There's beginners level, there's intermediate, advanced. And I've had a wonderful time there, and I've made friends for life. So that's one of the things that I've done.
Have you made visits to Lilydale?
Yes, I've also worked at Lilydale many times. Lilydale is a campus that's connected with the American spiritualist movement. And they have what was called, I guess we would call it, a gated community. That's absolutely beautiful. And it's meant to kind of portray Victorian times, if you will, where we have a lot of outdoor services, and there's an old growth forest, and there's many places for people to enjoy. There's a lake that's surrounded by willow trees. And again, these are opportunities to be with like-minded people. So another one of the travels that I wanted to share with you that I'm not sure that you had known previously was last year I had my first opportunity to work as a medium on a cruise, which I loved. And I had been thinking about doing it for a long time. And I thought, wow, the environment is absolutely ideal. You've got a bunch of relaxed people. The age group seems concordant with most of my clients. The water always contributes to spiritual experiences. And my experience, this is ideal. And so I wasn't quite sure how to approach doing this. And a few days before the cruise, when I was still not sure whether I was going to really go through with this, I was at my home and I suddenly sensed the presence of about 20 to 30 people in spirit. And I knew that meant one thing. These were the people that wanted to connect on the cruise. I had never felt that kind of push from the spirit world before, and they were pushing. So I was on the cruise and I learned that they had two beautiful conference rooms that were soundproofed. This is ideal. And I approached them and I said, can I rent your conference rooms? And they said, we're not going to charge you. Just, it's a self-led thing, but they'll charge me for the AV, for the microphone. Absolutely wonderful. And I advertised around in the cruise groups and so forth. So it wasn't officially sponsored by the cruise line because it was a self-led experience, but we had a packed house and it was really neat. And what I wanted to mention on this was that this included people who had previously worked with mediums and many who never did, right? And so my friend Brad Reed is a medium from Vancouver, Washington, and he was there helping to organize, and he also was there as my guest medium. And so the plan is that I would start, and then at a certain point, he would give a couple of messages, and then I would continue. So we got to that point, and I had finished my first part, and he was giving his part. And now we're in a soundproof room with a packed house. And that was the time that the captain comes on the loudspeaker. And the funny thing was, he was doing his daily announcements, but usually in the rest of the ship, you couldn't quite hear him so clearly. Well, you could hear him as if he was, on a megaphone. And he went on and on and on. And the longer he went on in this very melodic voice, the funnier it got. And so the room really energized as a result of that. Now Brad kind of lost it, right? Of course, anybody being interrupted like that could lose that. And so then I finished up the session. And the two last ones were so interesting, the two last messages, because one relayed a personal joke in the family, which was actually something about goldfish. And it was really funny. So again, brought up the energy there. And then at the very last 5 or 10 minutes, I want to say, I brought through a child of somebody that was in the audience. And it was, you can imagine, very emotional. And while the energy was high, there was not too many dry eyes in the room, and mine wasn't either. And I can feel myself getting emotional just recalling that. And when it was all over, it was a real life-changing experience for a lot of people, that came up afterwards. We never thought we would participate in something like this. We'd never seen something like this. And it really moves hearts. What can I say?
You're going to be offering two classes for A.R.E. of NYC. The first one is
Mhm.
called Behind the Scenes in Mediumship, Stories from the Road. That'll be on May 28th at 7 o'clock. Please share what you're going to be speaking about.
Well, I'm very excited to be going behind the scenes, sharing what it's like to become an evidential medium and what things have occurred to get me from the place where I was in private practice as a clinical sexologist all the way to working with crowds of hundreds and in many other capacities. It's very interesting to share from the other side of the desk, so to say, and what things have come up that have been unusual and what things have come up over and over again that clients can expect. I really want to provide an opportunity for people who are unfolding their mediumship and unfolding their other gifts of the spirit for a chance to say, this is something that I can claim. This is something that I can develop. This is something that I can unfold. And to show people step by step how this can be done and make it really accessible for everybody.
Wonderful. And your second presentation is entitled Messages from Loved Ones in Spirit, and that'll be on Monday, June 8th at 7 p.m. Please tell us what you're going to be sharing there.
Great. Well, there's a three-part presentation. It is essentially a gallery style presentation of evidential mediumship on Zoom. So I'll be seeing a whole bunch of boxes. I'll be connecting with loved ones in spirit and then identifying them enough that I can place them with people on the Zoom call. I've done this before. It's very interesting that it can work even in that technological way of doing things. Spirit will come through in many, many ways. Um, I'm really looking forward to working with many people, bringing many messages through. So I'll start with a short talk, and I do that to get everybody on the same page. If somebody is a newbie to a mediumship demonstration, we want to make sure that we've sorted out some of the myths and misconceptions ahead of time so that they can really get the most out of that hour. And then I'll wind down and we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers at the end.
Wonderful. And I'll put the links for both of your presentations into the comments that are on the bottom of this video. So people will be able to click on that and register from that location. So tell us about your website and what you offer there.
Sure. Thank you so much. It's in the process of being redesigned actually right now, but it'll serve the same function. It is a place, the name is called Communications in Spirit. And it's a place where I feel that people can go and get a little bit of their frequently asked questions answered, learn about my work, learn about some of the events I've done in the past, learn about what clients have said. But then it also functions to book my appointments. And I offer three different kinds of appointments there. I do psychic readings for a half hour, an hour. I do mediumship readings for 1 hour minimum. I don't combine them. They're two different energies, so people can book one or the other or both back to back. I also work with groups. So that's another thing that I do. So if the people want me to come out to say they've got a family group, that can be arranged as well. I don't do too many of them because they're private and they take a lot of work, but that's possible too, where I can arrange a conference room and people can meet me in the city. I also have an office in the city. But I would say that right now, especially after the pandemic, the vast majority of my clients are actually not in the New York City area. So I'm working with people internationally through Zoom, through phone, and many places in the United States as well. But just not too many people local anymore, the way it's evolved.
My dear friend, Dr. Rom Weber, thank you so much for joining us and sharing what you're going to be offering at A.R.E. of New York City. And of course, ever-present smile and your ever-present effervescence.
Thank you so much, Victor. It's been a pleasure talking with you tonight, talking about the programs that are coming up. And I look forward to Thursday night and then in June coming back for another time with A.R.E. I've really enjoyed working with A.R.E. in the past, and I'm looking forward to coming back again.
Thank you, Dr. Rom. Thank you so much.